Our next story on review for 2018 is hashtag Endsars movement and the abuse of power by security agencies. The Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, took a very unpleasant direction in the manner with which they harassed innocent Nigerian youths in 2018. The unjust assault and extortion by SARS operatives incited the youth to begin a social media campaign to disband SARS. To pacify the irate youths, Vice President of Nigeria, Yemi Osinbajo, called for police reforms that will tackle the issue of SARS brutality. And of course, this worked a great deal in reducing the number of assaults. Endsars, it was huge on social media in 2018.
I mean, it was a social media story that crossed over, right, into the mainstream.
Into mainstream.
Yeah.
This was one of those.
Yeah, this was one of those. So you know the.
And it was led by complaints.
Yeah, you know the off-quote moniker about you people talking on social media, you know, are completely removed from reality. Endsars was one of those stories that bridged that online-offline gap, and I think for good reason. I think a lot of people needs to go back and study the history of the Nigerian police in order to understand why this institution seems attitudinally wired towards oppression and
and abuse
with respect.
Yes.
In contrast with, you know, law enforcement and community building, as it were. The Nigerian police force was an offshoot of the combination of the Lagos Constabulary and the Royal Hausa Constabulary, and this happened in the late 19th century. Those two forces were paramilitary organizations that were set up by the British with the express intention to suppress and to subjugate, right? And so when the Nigerian police force, you know, eventually got combined in 1900, and then first was the Nigerian police force, it became the Nigerian police force close to independence, we would already had a situation where we had successive generations of police officers which were hardwired, you know. They were essentially groomed within an institutional framework that was hardwired to deal with any form of coercion and then ask questions later. And so policing in Nigeria did not follow the same strands of evolution as it did in many other societies, which was born out of the need to ensure there was peace, order, and, you know, those who went against the law-abiding ethos of, you know, the wider society were brought into question. It was more a case of, you know, we do not have enough resources as a colonial occupying power, that's talking about the British now, to send British troops and British lives, right, to conquer and to maintain law and order in these territories. So let's hire the natives to do that, right?
But, so...
Okay. I'll go after her.
I'm just giving this.
No, I like that.
You guys can take care of
no,
the rest.
It was good. It was good to have taken us
context.
That
Context is always very, very important.
Yes.
I like that, but I think over the decades, and this is where I'll take on from where you left off. So over the decades, you basically had consistent, persistent, and almost deliberate dehumanization of Nigerian police. As a result, who then passed it on to the people. Because, again, we have to remember, if the police is supposed to protect the lives of the people and community, therefore being the extension of the government, right? Lives and property, etc., they've got to know that their own lives matter, as obvious as it sounds. And one thing that has happened over successive governments is that they've been told that their lives doesn't matter. They've actually been turned into beggars. They've been turned into abusers. And I'm not making an excuse for them. I am merely talking about the fact that when you strip a person of pride, humanity, humility, you strip them of everything that makes them a whole, and yet you want that person to then look at me and think they want to protect me. You create animals, and animals will behave the way animals are supposed to behave. Part of this whole paramilitary thing. So as a result of this paramilitary, then over decades, you basically, it's almost like tuning it. They tuned it more and more. Yep. And what then happened is they then started to disrespect the Nigerian people. They started to pass the anger on to Nigeria. And who are the easiest people to abuse? Young people.
So there is an abuse of power.
Absolutely.
Which is where I would like to come from.
Yeah.
I think I would like to take it beyond colonial times. But maybe I should go pre-colonial. There's a certain attribute of our African culture that seems to do something to our psyche whenever we are donned military or paramilitary uniforms.
Okay.
If I go to our pre-colonial...
When we're giving power.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I take us back to our pre-colonial societies, whether it was in the Igbo pre-colonial society, even the Yoruba, we had seen, what do you call those chaps in the Yoruba traditional society who were saddled with responsibility to enforce law and order?
What do you call them? You know the ones, yes,
yeah,
I know the ones you're talking about.
So
It'll come to me. Yes, it'll come to me.
It's history class at this point.
History class. We're supposed to be reviewing top stories and not taking us or schooling.
Are you talking about
builds
OPC?
on the previous years.
Are you talking about OPC?
No, it's not OPC. It's in a
No, he was talking about the more
traditional ones.
traditional
Right.
colonial society. Now, I want to take us through history, so I can
we
bring us
don't
down to reality.
No luxury of that time, but
So
let's-
while
let's-
we don't have the
while-
luxury of
Maybe I
that.
should just conclude.
Yeah.
So I was saying that there is something about the uniform,
That
paramilitary or military uniform that turns us or converts us to oppress us. So that we're not just looking at the police here. It's not the first time we've had people who are donned uniforms oppress and suppress people. We've seen that with LASMA.
Yes.
We've seen that with LASMA.
Yes.
Until their whips were
Yes.
clipped,
Yes, we've seen that.
their wings were
Okay,
clipped.
until their wings were
but
clipped.
you do
And we
know
see-
that this is not primarily a Nigerian thing.
Exactly.
That's why I said
Yeah.
Africa.
Well, not just
No, not
Africa.
just an
I mean,
African thing.
it's so what we've lacked in Nigeria with the police force and almost every force is constant reform. So there was a time the police in America was no different from the police in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
Right now.
Midnight police.
They were.
They were
basically
police
a
full stop,
Gestapo
yes,
At one
yes.
point, if you
Yes.
there's historical background of where they put you in asylum if you were too verbal about
Yes.
so many things.
Yes.
So the question is, how did they get to the police force, who still have bad eggs still today? I mean, I'm talking about in the United States. But how have they come to the point where they can be
Pockets.
held
We have pockets
accountable?
of those,
No, what I'm
instances.
saying is that they still have them, but how is it that you can now hold them accountable? Constant reform.
Yes.
And that's what the Endsars was supposed to
Yes.
To create.
reform. My only worry with the Endsars campaign, and I know that I hope Sega Link gets to see this, is that
It's going on social, so yeah.
so this cannot be the end.
Yeah.
agree with you.
It can't be the end. We can't just have made the noise and then we move away from there. It has to be continuous and ongoing.
Absolutely.
So reform doesn't
Right.
end today.
Right.
Reform is, okay, we moved it from here to here. We now realize the new devil altogether. We're like,
Absolutely.
oh,
Because
we
it
need-
creates,
Yeah.
it'll form
because
somewhere
we see
else.
nothing to
If we
observe.
don't fix it,
Speaking
it'll
of
form
abuse,
somewhere
speaking
else.
of abuse, one of the stories that also made headlines segueing into this Endsars movement story, the Nigerian military also did come under serious criticism in October of 2018 after some operatives of the army fired at scores of Shiite Muslims in Abuja during a 3-day march demanding release of their imprisoned leader, Ibrahim El-Zakzaky. In your opinions, I mean, the soldiers claim that the protesters attacked them with stones and blocked major roads.
We would never know.
But, I mean, were they right to respond that way?
And this is the thing. How do you justify? This is almost like the African American police, the American police and the African American. They will say they started throwing stuff at us, and then I had no shot. I felt threatened. We had to charge in and shoot. There's no comparison. A bullet to a stone. By the time you've thrown 100 stones, you've killed 1 million people, literally. So there's nothing at all that justifies. And I think what happened in Abuja, forever and a day, will haunt the most of us. Will really haunt us, and it will be an indictment and a terrible stain on this government forever and a day. We have to understand that forces, people of the forces, are actually, especially the ones that we call them beats, the ones on the beats, they're plug and play people. They work to order. They work to direction. They are not allowed to disobey. So you say when you get out there, every one of those people that you say, if they get too aggressive, shoot them, they will shoot. If you say don't shoot,
They will not.
push it down with water, whatever, calm them with water, they will calm them down with
That's why I
water.
keep saying reform is the
Reform
Yeah,
is
it
so
paradoxically
important.
makes
You can't-
reform
Yes.
easier,
Yes.
potentially more effective.
And
Yes.
you see, it's the general context with almost everything. When we come
Absolutely.
to accept that things should just be the way they are. the police need reform. The police need to be better equipped, better cared for,
better compensated.
Compensated in terms
is that are we even talking about just police, or are we talking about the whole forces? All our forces.
But then all that reform then goes to the point where, you know, if you do something and then it's out of context, there's a straight line to which we can hold you.
There's a penalty for it.
There's a penalty for it. So for me, it's a case of reform cannot stop. Endsars was awesome. It brought light to those issues, but we need a new
way of
may I come in here?
And respect. There needs to be respect, because there's no respect between the police and the general public.
The issue of police, because I'm a lawyer and I've been very, very much involved in a number of these issues, I know that since this current dispensation started, there's been recurrent reforms going on in the police by almost every new IG that comes into office. So that the problem, we have laws, we have very good laws, we have regulatory establishment.
Yes,
you wonder whether we ever have these laws.
We do.
But the problem we've always had in this country is that we have backing non-biting laws. We have laws that actually are speaking, but nobody enforces these laws. So that every time we come and we talk about reforms, we have laws, and these laws are very good. But again, as somebody had mentioned here, I can't remember who, it is having the will. The will to always enforce these laws, because we do in fact have these laws.
Right.
But you know, when we talk about reform, Tunji is talking about reform, Ikemesit, you have now. When we talk about reform, we're not just talking a case of reforming the way they do things. It's also reforming the way they are treated.
Exactly.
They have, look, just the other day, a very quick story, just the other day, a young policeman that I know I call them fashola cops, the ones on the bike that used to be really powerful back in those days. He got knocked off his bike. He was in Iyanoworo. He got knocked off his back by a speeding car. The colleagues, they took him to accident emergency, the nearest hospital. He was left there. Nobody has come back. I had to pay his hospital fees. He kept calling. It was when he called me and he sent me all these pictures. I'm like, what is wrong with you? And I'm questioning, but you work for the police. Don't they have this? Don't they have that? I always knew they didn't, because all you've got, I dare any Nigerian that's out there, take time out and go and spend just a few minutes with the DPO of your nearest police station and talk to them. You will be shocked, and perhaps you might get to understand why when you see a mad policeman, just say, sorry, Oga, walk away. Seriously, their families, when a policeman dies, they have to bury them. The government is not the ones that bury them. The police, their friends, bury them. They lose their livelihood. They lose, the wives and children have to move out of the barracks. And it goes on and on and on and on. I had to pay. I had to send him money. Reform has got to be all the way down.
Perhaps maybe I should just say, before it gets lost on me, I think it was late December or maybe in the middle of December that the current administration announced a series of packages for the police.
Yes,
I just hope that...
Isn't that Lagos State? Because Lagos State have been raising their money. Remember, Lagos State started raising their money.
It's the federal government. I just hope that that's sustainable.
Well, we can only hope for the very best in this new year, and hoping that the reforms will begin to actually take shape as we move along.